Here we're exploring how we can use the algebraic operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to create new functions. And we call this algebra with functions. So if f and g are both functions of x, and if x is in the domain of each function, then we have the following algebraic operations. So the sum of f and g is defined as f plus g of x. And now to actually find the sum of these two functions, we expand this out to f of x plus g of x. Very similarly, we have the difference or subtraction of functions. So here, we define the difference of functions as f minus g of x. And again, to actually perform this calculation, we need to rewrite this as f of x minus g of x. Now be careful here. We're working with a difference, so it might be helpful to incorporate parentheses or brackets around that second function to remind yourself to distribute the negative sign through to each term in the second function. Next, we have the product of two functions, which we define as f times g of x. And again, to actually perform this calculation, we expand this out to f of x times g of x. And last but certainly not least, we have the quotient of functions. And we define this as f by g of x. And expanding this out to perform the calculation, we have f of x all divided by g of x. And now, of course, we know that division by zero does not exist. So we need to add an additional note here, reminding us, or such that the denominator, g of x, cannot be equal to 0. Now, in addition to these algebraic operations that we have here, we want to make a couple of little notes regarding the domain of each one of these new functions. So the first note is that the domain of the sum, difference, and product of functions is the intersection of the domain of f of x with the domain of g of x. And when we say the intersection, we mean the overlapping region of these two domains. Now, what about the quotient? Now, for the quotient of functions, the domain of f by g is also going to be the intersection of the domain of f with the domain of g, but we have the additional exclusion of any x values that are going to make the denominator equal 0. And we know this because division by 0 is undefined.